Hello and welcome back to the Engage 8 podcast. I'm Josh with my co-host Mike. Today we have our first recap of the NFL season with week 1. We're going to start with the Ravens Chiefs on Thursday night all the way up to Sunday night with the Lions and the Rams. We are here recording right before Monday Night Football. We may or may not be recording into the game itself. We will recap that Monday Night Football game on our preview episode for week 2 later on in the week. But starting with Thursday Night Football, Ravens at Chiefs. Chiefs get the win in this game. What was the exact score? 27-20 over the Ravens. Came down to the last second with Isaiah Likely almost scoring a touchdown. He did not have the white cleats on. You could see him step on the line at the end in the back of the end zone. It sucked for him. He was having a monster day. It looks like he's going to be the guy over Mark Andrews now. Overall, let's see, what were his exact stats? I don't have them on the top. Oh, right here. 9 catches for 111 and a touchdown for Likely. And like I said, he almost had that one at the end of the game. That was huge for them. Sucked to get that far to the end and lose it. They were going to go for 2 as well if they scored it. But the Chiefs are the story of this game. They looked much improved from last season offensively. You could tell they looked smooth. They didn't capitalize on every drive. They just didn't finish a couple. But many teams struggle offensively in game 1 to get into rhythm. We saw it last night with the Lions and the Rams at points. Both teams looked clunky. The Chiefs did not look clunky at all here on Thursday night. The Ravens O-line, I pointed out, was probably going to be a problem in this game for them. It was. The Chiefs were all over Lamar. He did Lamar things and got away from it and had a ton of rushing yards, but they definitely had a hard time running the ball against the Chiefs. Derrick Henry did not have a great debut, partially to his own detriment, partially to the detriment of his offensive line. The Ravens looked fine defensively, but they were playing against the Chiefs, so fine just isn't really good enough against the Chiefs. I think the Ravens are going to be a great defensive unit. As I said, I think they're just going to progress as the year goes on. I hold nothing really against the defense. I hold nothing really against the Ravens as a whole in this game. I think the Chiefs are just that good. They came out week 1. They didn't want to do what they did last year, where they came out flat, had a ton of drops, and lost to the Lions at home after winning the Super Bowl. They didn't want to do that again. I think the Chiefs are going to be an absolute force this regular season, and I'm very impressed with what I saw from them.
Yeah, I also feel like the Chiefs kind of have the Ravens number right now. The Ravens kind of just, again, looked like they wanted to win so badly that it almost hurt them. Lamar, we hadn't seen him run that much and take that many hits in a while. Didn't see that much last year at all. He had 122 yards on the ground on 16 carries. He was taking some big hits. I don't expect that to continue throughout the season. I think he'll continue what he did last year, be more careful and be in the pocket more. But he looked good running the ball, passing the ball, not as much. He had a 41 pass attempt still on 273 yards. All right, first possession of the game got out to a little bit of a slow start, calling a legal formation. I think there was like 3 or 4 of them on the first possession on the Ravens. Didn't really call it much in the rest of the game. Never called it on the Chiefs, who looked like they had a few of them, which of course we're not going to call it on the Chiefs, whatever. But for the Chiefs, Mahomes was great. 20 for 28, 291 yards, touchdown and a pick. We saw some of his new weapons, Xavier Worthy, with an incredible debut in his first game, 2 touchdowns. He looked great. Rashee Rice, he was very speedy. 7 catches, 103 yards. He looked like a guy. He almost is looking like a slant guy where he's just running straight slants almost the entire game and is going to get open. Not much Travis Kelce in this one, 3 catches only. But the Chiefs offense, like you said, looked very good overall. I think this will continue throughout the season, and if they can play like this, they should easily be in contention for that first overall seed. For the Ravens, I think they'll be very good still throughout the year. I think their defense will play a little bit better. I think their offense will still be good. Their offensive line needs to figure out a few things, but I think with Lamar Jackson, your offensive line can be a little bit worse with how athletic he is. One guy I am slightly worried about on the Ravens is Justin Tucker. He was 1 for 5 from 50 plus last year, which is not good, especially from Justin Tucker. He starts the season 0 for 1. He's getting older. Hopefully he can figure it out, but he's one of the best kickers. It'll be interesting to see if he can figure it out a little bit from there, if he's just in a little bit of a slump.
Yeah, the refs come out every year in the NFL and they have a point of emphasis in that first game. Last year, I forget exactly what it was. I think it might have been like the receiver not being fully set before the snap. It was something like that. And we noticed last year that they refused to call the Jawan Taylor lining up too far back, getting a head start on Aiden Hutchinson. We kind of gave up on that because the Lions ended up winning the game anyway, so there wasn't a lot of talk about it. Had the Lions lost that game, that would have gone crazy. I mean, it did still on social media. And then we go and we see them call it on the Ravens out of the gate here in Thursday Night Football. And they don't call it on Jawan Taylor, who he did it. I think they called it on him once, but he continued to do it over and over. Helmet was behind. I think it's like the center's belt line or something like that.
Yeah, Suns
Uh,
line.
Horrible. I mean, but it's the Chiefs. What do you expect?
Yeah, Chiefs just they're getting that old New England flag that I used to get pissed off with, and now it's transferred its way to Taylor Swift and the Chiefs.
I'm happy it's still in the AFC though.
Yeah,
Moving on here to the Sao Paulo game in Brazil, and I'll talk about the factors of the Brazil game in a little bit, but focusing on the game itself for now. This game went almost as we expected, to be honest. We expected the Eagles would be able to go crazy on the Packers offense or defense, and we expected vice versa for the Packers. We see that here in a 34-29 game between these two teams. Saquon had a monster game in his first game in Philly. He finishes with 24 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. I think there was a third one he was about to get, but he didn't fully get. He was
he got a third
phenomenal.
touchdown.
Oh, did
He had a
the
receiving one.
receiving touchdown, right? That was the first one, and then the second two. Correct. So he finishes with 3 touchdowns. I think that was his only catch. No, he had one more. So he goes 2 for 23 and a touchdown in the air. Had that ball to like the left pylon in the first or second quarter. That was a crazy play by him and Jalen Hurts. Both teams were able to pass the ball extremely well in this game. That was very encouraging to see from the Eagles, who struggled with that towards the end of the year last year. It was encouraging to see that from them. The Packers win the turnover battle 3-1 in this game and still lose the game, which is something that's very, very hard to do in this league. For the Packers, Jaden Reed was a force all game long. I think personally, just after one game, I'm confident enough to say that I think he's wide receiver one in Green Bay. It just feels like Christian Watson should have been that guy, and it just feels like Jaden Reed's just always out there making plays for them. Regardless, I mean, we see Jordan Love get hurt in this game, so we're going to see Malik Willis for at least the next couple of weeks. But Love is not going to go on IR. So he probably is only going to miss around 3-ish games. We see Malik Willis. Hopefully, Jaden Reed can still be able to get the ball in this Malik Willis offense. He's so fast that I think they're going to want to be able to get him the ball, especially in short routes from Malik Willis. For the Eagles defensively, it was definitely concerning, but like I said, with them, the Lions, and the Ravens, 3 young secondaries that I all think are going to turn into great units this year. I think that's going to happen for the Eagles, but they're still getting used to playing with one another. You see it when you got a ton of young guys together who haven't played together. You need that communication in the secondary. They're not there yet. They will get better. Packers are a tough team to have to go against in the first game in that aspect. The Packers on defense, they just were not good ever, or they were not good at all this game. And I will say I'm not as confident as I am in the Eagles to get better as I am in the Packers. I'm a little bit concerned about this Packers defensive unit, especially if they're not able to score a ton of points with Malik Willis in. I think that could lead to a lot of early losses here for Green Bay.
Yeah, I agree. This game got off to a little bit of a slow start. 6-0 after the first quarter.
Oh,
We
I do
saw
have some breaking news.
what is that?
Christian McCaffrey is inactive
Oh
tonight from
wow.
a calf injury.
Oh no, I didn't place that bet yet. Oh, that hurts. Line's gonna completely move now, probably. But Saquon Barkley with a great debut. The game started out a little bit slow. Jalen Hurts had a bad interception early in the game, then followed it up, I think, with a bad fumble. Got off to a rough start, but he recovered. He played pretty well, especially in the second half. 278 yards and 2 touchdowns. He got the ball to AJ Brown, 5 catches for 119 yards and a touchdown. AJ Brown and Jay Alexander were going back and forth all game, but AJ Brown was able to get that big 70-yard touchdown on top of him. And for the Packers, Jordan Love wasn't great. He had some shaky plays, but he was able to rebound a little bit. He had a nice throw late, obviously, to Jordan Reed, kept him in the game. But overall, Eagles, their offense was a little too much to handle. Saquon Barkley with the incredible debut, which was just huge for them. And for the Packers running game, Josh Jacobs, 16 carries, 84 yards. He did all right. But the story of the offense was for Packers was Jaden Reed, just showing that he can be a star for them. Like you said, Jordan Love did get hurt late. Hopefully it's only 3 weeks for him. They got a couple big games coming up. I know they got the Colts next week, but hopefully he's not out for too long because this could really hurt the Packers' playoff chances.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I was saying with this game being in Brazil, just what a money grab from Roger Goodell in the NFL this game was. I mean, you had both teams have to stay in the hotel all week long. They couldn't go outside. And then you put them on this field that is just horrible. I mean, you saw the videos and everything come out of the turf after the game. Just looked so, so bad from Brazil. I don't know how you put your team in an environment where they have to be in their hotels all week, and then you can't even give them a good enough field to play on. It's insane. I forgot who somebody said it in the media this weekend after this game that it's going to be in the next 5 years that we get an Abu Dhabi game. I completely can see that happening. You know Goodell's
Yeah.
going to want that money. I mean, an Abu Dhabi game or a Dubai game actually would be probably good for the league. Those are two places that I think is actually good for expansion. Not that Brazil isn't, but just everything that went on in this game, especially with the field, was just bad. Luckily, Jordan Love is not hurt for too long. If that was a season-ending injury, I don't know if I would blame the field on that, but still, that would be a brutal, brutal look for the NFL.
Yeah, and on top of that, you get hurt and it's a knee injury, and you're in Brazil. You don't have near the doctors you do in America
That's
at
what I'm
all.
saying. What if somebody,
It's
what if like a Damar Hamlin incident happened?
yeah,
Like, what would they have done?
I don't know because I can't imagine their hospitals are close to as good as any hospital in America would be.
Yeah, I
So
mean, my initial thought of that was they probably have some sort of thing set up
I know
for.
I saw someone that said they sent like I can't remember the exact amount, but it was a lot of tons of just equipment to Brazil just for this one game. It was like a
I'm sure.
I can't even remember, but it was a ridiculous number of how much and they've been sending it for months. So interesting. I don't even know why Brazil would want an NFL game in the first place, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I assumed that they would have a hospital set up and they have to like that would be an absolute essential. But after seeing the field at the end of the game, if the field being in a good condition wasn't essential, I'm not convinced that anything else was essential for this game. And I don't know.
yeah.
I just think it's a bad, bad look for the NFL and Roger Goodell.
It was 40,000 pounds of equipment per team.
That is absurd. Yeah, that just any situation where you have to do that just isn't a good situation. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the NFL is going to do what it can to get the money, even put it on a
I don't know
Friday
how they
night.
profit off of that, but
I, they found a way. They wouldn't do it if they didn't profit off
yeah.
it. I guarantee that. But moving on here to the next game, Steelers and Falcons. Justin Fields gets the start for the Steelers with Russell Wilson going out, I believe Thursday in practice, and then he missed the game. But the Steelers still win the game. It's so Steelers to win this game on 6 field goals and 18 points. That's just the most Boswell Steelers thing in the world. They do it here against the Falcons. Kirk Cousins looked very slow. Shocking to see a 35-year-old look slow after tearing his ACL, but it's definitely concerning. I still don't think it's panic time. It's one game. It's against the Pittsburgh Steelers defense, which is a very good defense, a defense that although the Falcons do have a great offensive line, if you're under pressure, it's going to be a tough day for you. It was a tough day for Kirk Cousins. We're going to see how this plays out for Kirk and Atlanta, but it's hard to watch this game and say you don't have concerns. Regardless of how good Pittsburgh's defense is, there's definitely concerns there for Atlanta. The defense for Pittsburgh just kept getting stops, and the offense just kept getting into field goal range, kicking a field goal, getting the ball back to Atlanta, and Atlanta couldn't do anything offensively. So the Steelers were able to just do as much as they could and carry defensively to win this game. That's exactly what they did. Boswell's a perfect 6 for 6. He was great for them as well, of course. Atlanta should be able to beat most teams in the trenches on both ends. The Steelers are just not that team. You're not going to be able to bully them up front on offense. And on defense, the Steelers were actually able to do a good job to an extent for Fields, although he was not fantastic by any means. Fields goes 17 for 23. That's solid for him. Only 156 yards, but it's Justin Fields. What do you expect? For Atlanta, Ray McLeod and Bijan were their leading receivers. That is just not what you want to see. Kyle Pitts still doesn't get the production you want from him. He ends with 3 for 26. Drake London doesn't get the production you want. He ends with 2 for 15. Just a very ugly game for an Atlanta team that is very flashy on offense, and we expected to score a ton of points. It's definitely a bad loss for them, and they're going to need Kirk to step it up for their sake, or they're going to end up in the same situation they were in last year, just down a lot more money.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have a backup at least this time,
Yep,
but the
they set themselves up.
they did. Steelers won this football game. I'm not shocked at all. This going into this game, I thought the Falcons were just better, and then the more I thought about it, this is a game that the Falcons lose and that the Steelers just find
Yep.
a way to win. And I should have just trusted that. TJ Watt was phenomenal. Had a sack. He should have had 2 sacks, and the sack that he should have had, it was a strip sack with a fumble recovery, but the refs called him off sides and then told him later that they think they might have got it wrong. So unfortunate for him, but he was still phenomenal. He still found a way to get a fumble recovery. And offensively, Justin Fields looked solid. Just one of the better, maybe Justin Fields games we've seen with 156 passing yards, 57 rushing yards, gets his team a win. Actually, that's just a normal Justin Fields game. They really fed the ball to Najee Harris, 20 carries, 70 yards. Just get the time of possessions. Pickens was solid. 6 catches for 85 yards. Looked like their number one receiver, considering they don't really have a number two too much. It's just disappointing from the Falcons if you're an Atlanta fan, especially because this is a game going into a season with a new head coach, new quarterback. You think you're going to get your ball to your guys, like you said, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney even, and you really don't get it to any of them except for Bijan, who had 23 total touches. Disappointing. Kirk Cousins, he didn't look great, but it is his first game back. So you have to give him a little bit of time to maybe get into rhythm, but his arm strength and like the power didn't really look good. Didn't look like he had his legs under him. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Chris Boswell was the MVP. 6 field goals, all 18 points. 3 of those field goals came from 50+ yards. How much the new kickoff rules affected getting into field goal range, I don't know. But Falcons in the second half, only 51 total yards. I can't have that.
Speaking of the new field kickoff rules, I guess this is a good time to talk about them. I know the average you were talking about the average being like 35, 40. It ended up being 30, I believe, on the week so far leading up to Monday night, which isn't crazy. It's definitely a big difference because 30 means you're getting a ton of 40s. Regardless, I still
But you
think
get the ball to 30 if you take a touchback.
right, and that's the average. Right now
Huh.
it's 30. So people
It had to
are
be more.
people are returning it and not getting it as far, and people are returning it and getting it way farther. I don't like the touchback being to the 30 either. I still think that should be to the 25. But regardless, it hasn't made too big of a difference yet. There have been more returns too, which is good to see. 22% last year was just an absurd number. It should never be 22%. I think it's like
No.
30 something now, which isn't that big of a difference, but still it's improvement so far. We'll see. It's still small sample size with just 15 games, but
I'm gonna have to find that
that
because I felt like every
that
time I
was
was
going
watching a
in
kick return.
that was going into Sunday night last night because they showed a graphic on the screen.
Yeah.
So I
Funny.
don't know off the top of my head. I don't think there were any big returns on Sunday Night Football, so it's probably still around 30, I would assume.
I mean, because they had the big kick return. I feel like every time teams were starting the ball, they would have it at like the 38, 40 yard line, get a first down and be in fringe field goal range. And it was just getting me upset. But
I
maybe I
mean,
was just
I'm just
overreacting.
unless NBC put it on the wrong stat, but that was what NBC put up on the screen.
Yeah.
Regardless,
I have
though,
to trust NBC.
moving on to the game that had the kick return touchdown, the Cardinals and the Bills. The Cardinals scored on their first 3 drives of this game, 2 touchdowns and a field goal. They came out looking really good. Kyler didn't have the best game, but the Cardinals were doing enough on offense and enough on defense to be able to produce points early with those first 3 drives. But then the Cardinals just kind of lost their offensive rhythm in the second half. The kick return touchdown helped them greatly and definitely helped them stay in this game, but they really just lost their rhythm in the second half. Although the Cardinals defense started out locking up Buffalo, they really lost that in the second half. Buffalo was able to get comfortable. You see Josh Allen finish with 4 total touchdowns. He was there. He was able to get comfortable against this Cardinals defense that played so well in the first half. Big comeback win for Josh Allen and the Bills. A lot of question marks for this team going into the offseason. We said in the preview that this Cardinals team is scrappy, and then that 6.5 line was tough to get, although we still both took Buffalo. We both mentioned that the Cardinals easily could cover that, and they're a good enough team to hang in there. I think the Cardinals are going to do that all year long, but Josh Allen and the Bills, they're experienced enough. They were able to come back in this game at home. The Bills, a little bit concerning. They were not able to run the ball as effective as they hoped. We said the Bills are going to have to lean on the run game this year. They had their best rushing season with Josh Allen last season. They looked really good with James Cook, and they were just not able to really get anything going in this game. After all the turnovers and big plays in this game and everything that went wrong for the Cardinals in the second half, they still had Marvin Harrison Jr. open for a touchdown late in the game. They didn't get him the ball, unfortunately, but he was wide open calling for it. Regardless, I think it's good for both teams here. It's a huge second half response from Buffalo to be able to come back and win this game, a game that they should win, but against a scrappy team here in Arizona. This is a good win, I believe, for the Bills with all the doubts they had going into the year. And I think it's a moral victory for Arizona. You did so much right this game and so much wrong, and you were right there to win the game at the end. I think it's a moral victory for Arizona. I think both these teams could end up being solid teams this year.
Yeah, I agree. Cardinals came out, looked great. Tyler looked very good. Um, he led the Cardinals in rushing, I think, with 57 yards on 5 carries. Overall, he was good. Marvin Harrison, first game was quiet. I think he'll take a couple weeks to kind of get his feet under him and really get going. He only had one catch for like 4 yards. Um, but overall, Cardinals offense, they did kind of better than what I expected. This Bills defense was pretty good going into the game, and they were able to score on them, especially early in the second half. They had their struggles, but I think this was a just big win for the Bills, a game you needed to. You started off a little slow last year, and you started off slow in this game, but Josh Allen took over, had one of the better performances of this week. 4 total touchdowns, I think 2 rushing, 2 passing, 352 yards of total offense, new receiving group, and it didn't seem to be too much of an issue. Keon Coleman did lead them in his rookie game with 51 yards and 4 catches, led him in both. So good for him. Khalil Shakir gets a touchdown. Bills offense, it looked good. And Greg Rousseau on the defensive side, he had a big game for him with 3 sacks and a forced fumble. So he could be coming into his own and being maybe their big pass rush guy because they need someone to step up there and be able to get to the quarterback if Von Miller continues to kind of be inept of being able to do that. But Von Miller did have a sack in this one, so they can have a couple guys coming off the edge. That could be big for their defense. So it was a fun game. Obviously, they had a kick return touchdown as well. But that's a win the Bills needed, and they need to continue to build off that. And Josh Allen looked like he could be an MVP candidate.
He did, especially in that second half. But moving on here to a game I'm very excited to talk about. Bears and Titans. The Bears get the win 24-17. Very, very tough first game for Caleb Williams in this Bears offense. He finishes under 50% completion, only 93 passing yards for him. I do want to put some blame on him because he did look uncomfortable at times. He did miss a lot of throws deep, but I also want to put a lot of blame on the play calling of the Bears. A lot of run, get to 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, and then chuck something deep. Whether that was their game plan or Caleb Williams improvising and going deep, they threw it 20 plus yards on 3rd and short often in this game, especially early, and rarely, if ever, did they convert on those. Keenan Allen also, in Caleb Williams' defense, dropped what would have been Williams' first touchdown as a Bear in the regular season. He did drop that, unfortunate for him and the Bears. Will Levis was reckless as usual, but unusually, his reckless side did not come with the upside. Usually with Will Levis, he'll throw for a ton of yards, throw a couple picks. He'll definitely look reckless at times, but he'll also be able to toss bombs. He was not able to really do that this game. It was just the recklessness of him. Luckily for the Titans, they were able to surprisingly run the ball very well in this game. Pollard looked good, 16 for 82 and a touchdown. And Will Levis, he goes for 4 for 36. Tajay Spears, 4 for 21 against a Bears defense that was so dominant, stopping the run last season, and a Titans team that we didn't expect to be able to run the ball really at all this year. They were able to run the ball, and it was the reason that they went up 17-0 in this game. But the Bears defense in the secondary was just really, really good against Will Levis, and they were able to hold the Titans to 0 points in the second half. The Bears lose this game here if they play against a better team than the Titans. I don't think the Titans are a great roster. I was talking about this with my family before the game. They asked me what I think about the Titans before the game started, and I was like, I think the Titans are like a 25th, 26th ranked roster in the league. The Bears I'd put at like 14th or 13th, and the Bears almost lost this game and should have lost this game if it wasn't for a bad Levis pick six and a blocked punt. They do lose this game, and especially if it's against a better team. But here they escape with a win. No thanks to Caleb Williams, but a win is a win in this league. They're hard to get. 1-0 for the Bears. They really got to regroup here, playing against the Texans, I believe, on Sunday Night Football next week.
This is kind of what I expected from this game. I expected Caleb Williams to struggle a little bit. I know Bears fans put expectations on him that were just unrealistic, but I didn't expect it to be this extreme. Only 93 passing yards is rough. In the Super Bowl era, teams that scored 0 touchdowns and trailed by 17 or more points are 3 and 1,225. Two of those wins are now the Chicago Bears.
That's wild.
With them beating the Cardinals in 2006, and the other was Kansas City in 2016. So this isn't new territory for the Bears. They somehow find ways to do this every decade, but I expected them to struggle offensively. Not this bad. DeAndre Swift couldn't get much going on the ground, 10 carries for 30 yards. Caleb Williams couldn't get anything going really in the passing game. He's just gonna need some time to get adjusted to NFL defenses. It's not the Pac-12 anymore where you can run around for 20 minutes, scramble. We saw him do a massive scramble in this game where he took a like 20-yard sack and got him out of field goal range, which was killer, but just not what you want to do. Um, he does get the win. Number one overall picks are now 114-1 in their last 16 starts, so good for him. But he didn't do that much to contribute to the winning. I don't know if you saw. Did you see what Brian Callahan said today?
What do you say?
The Titans coach. He said, and I quote, "If we just punted it on 1st and 10 every time, we might have won the game."
Yeah, I saw that. That was crazy.
That's crazy for
to Will Levis, really. It's Will Levis that gets shafted on that.
Yeah, saying that to your team, especially if you being coming from an offensive background, you can't.
Partially on you too. Like
more than partially, it's definitely on him. But the Bears get a big special teams touchdown with Simone Biles' husband.
Yes,
that helped them get back in the game. Tyreek Stevenson with one of the most gifted interceptions you could get when Will Levis throws it underhand almost with his left, and then is just on the ground and the surrender cobra can't believe what he has done. Just really funny. That was one of the worst games of Will Levis's career. And it's a game where you have a lot of excitement kind of going into it. You got a new offensive coach, like I mentioned, in Brian Callahan. You have some new weapons with Calvin Ridley. You still have DeAndre Hopkins, only got one catch. You got Tyler Boyd coming in as well, and you really couldn't get anything going. 19 for 32, only 127 yards. 3 sacks taken, a touchdown, and 2 picks. Can't have that if you're Will Levis. You need to be better. He needs to show stuff pretty quickly because that was not a good game for him at all.
No, it wasn't. No, go ahead.
He's lucky that someone else from that draft class had a worse game than him this week.
Yeah, definitely. But Roma Dunze, the MRI came back.
Yeah.
It looks like he suffered a grade 1 knee sprain. They're going to get a second opinion, but that seems like one of the better case scenarios for the Bears for their rookie receiver. But moving on here to the next game, Bengals lose 16-10 at home against the Patriots. They have just been horrible week 1 in the Burrow era. I don't know how we just let ourselves completely believe. I do know how we let ourselves believe. The Patriots are not supposed to be a good team. This is an unbelievably bad loss for Cincinnati. I get it's their pattern that they come out and lose week 1 every year. That's fine. You can't do it against arguably the worst team in the league. It's not fine in that case. I knew they would start slow, but just New England is just not a team you can lose to early. It doesn't matter what kind of team you are if you have aspirations of winning a Super Bowl. The Bengals' run defense was horrible in this game. Ramondre Stevenson goes 25 for 120, absolutely dominated. New England just controlled this game. They almost had a 10-minute advantage on time of possession in this game. The lack of the run game for Cincinnati really hurt them. That was a concern I highlighted in the preview of the AFC North preview, I should say, that they need to be able to run the ball, and I'm scared with, even though they weren't able to run it really with Mixon last year, without Mixon, they weren't able to run it really at all in this game. They go 9 for 44, which is solid, I guess, with Zach Moss, but not in a game like this. You need him to be able to do better than that. 2 bad fumbles really cost the Bengals in this game, in the red zone as well. Really, really hurts them. New England's pass rush was able to get to Burrow 3 times, which is very, very concerning. Sack Burrow 3 times, I should say, which is just very concerning from this Bengals O-line, which was a unit we expected to be at least okay for them this year. It's looking like they're going to struggle against a team like the Patriots, whose pass rush is not supposed to be anything fantastic. They're great in this game. They get to Burrow, and Jacoby Brissett just finds ways to win football games, and we know the Patriots find ways to win football games. This is maybe the number 1 game of the week where I look back and I'm like, how on earth did I not take the Patriots with a quarterback who's reliable like Jacoby Brissett, a team like the Patriots who's known for being able to just get wins at any cost, being able to get them in an 8.5-point underdog. I feel so dumb for not taking them here, but regardless, this is way more about the Bengals. The Patriots might not even want to win this game. They might look at the end of the season and they're like, damn, we're the 2nd or 3rd pick. Maybe we shouldn't have beat the Bengals week 1, but this is mainly about the Bengals. They looked horrible, and I'm very, very concerned about them, regardless of if they lose week 1 every year or not.
Yeah, I feel like that with the Steelers game, I should have known that the Steelers were going to find a way to win that one. But this one, I was confident into the season with the Bengals. I thought Joe Burrow was going to come in and kind of sling the rock a little bit, but for some reason, I just forgot that the Bengals in the first 2 weeks are like the worst team in professional football with Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor is 1-10 in the first 2 weeks of the season, just absolutely abysmal. Their defense was not good, 170 rushing yards total. They had a chance for a touchdown in the game with Tanner Hudson, and Kyle Duggar comes in and makes a big play and fumbles. I don't know if Tanner Hudson was trying to celebrate when he lifted the ball up or what he was trying to do, reach for the pylon. I don't know, but that fumble really kind of turned the tide of the game and really kind of gave the game to the Patriots at that point. Patriots defense, I was surprised, and I don't know if it was just the Cincinnati passing was off with Jamar Chase missing most of the preseason or what. But Christian Gonzalez, I had mentioned him, I think, in the preview. I was excited to see how he would perform, and he looked very good out there. He had Jamar Chase making excuses, saying saying he was sick and stuff. But I think that was just how good Christian Gonzalez is. I think he's going to develop into one of the better corners pretty quickly. Held Chase to 6 catches for 62 yards, but game was in Cincinnati. Embarrassing performance. You cannot come out and play like that. I don't. There is no excuses at all for it, especially from Joe Burrow. Only 164 passing yards. You have to be better. If you're only good if you could have all of your weapons. I mean, are we going to put Joe Burrow with Brock Purdy that he needs all of these elite weapons to make himself look good? I don't know. I don't believe that, but just can't
One
have that.
may, one may believe it.
Yeah.
Moving on here to Titans, Colts, Texans, Colts. Texans win this game 29-27 over the Colts. This game was so close as we predicted. It was a very low scoring game until the last 5 drives that all resulted in touchdowns for these two teams. Richardson was solid in the pass and the run game. He looked I wouldn't say very good. He goes under 50% passing, but he did look good. Definitely encouraging against the Texans defense that we think is a solid unit. Not one of the best in the league, but they're a solid unit. Richardson's coming off injury. He comes here in his third or fourth career game and has a great game against a great team. Pierce clocked in some of the highest speeds of the day. He was really, really good
I got it.
for the Colts. Definitely an encouraging sign. We were trying to look in the preview of what are these lower end Colts receivers on the depth chart. Which one of them is going to be able to step up and be a good wide receiver 2 or 3 for them? Looks like Pierce can be that guy. He was so fast yesterday. The Colts were not able to run the ball as good as they wanted to. They would have won this game if they were able to run it as good as they wanted to. Jonathan Taylor finishes with 16 for 48 and a touchdown. Not a great performance from him. If they were able to run the ball, they would have been able to control this game, and that's what it came down to. The Texans were able to control this game. They ran the ball like crazy with Joe Mixon. He goes 30 carries for 160 and a touchdown. He was phenomenal. The Texans had the ball for exactly double the time the Colts did this game. They had the ball for 40 minutes. The Colts had the ball for 20 minutes. That was truly the difference here. Unexpectedly with the Joe Mixon too. We were worried about, are the Texans going to be able to run the ball this year? Joe Mixon is a little bit older. They weren't able to run the ball really at all last year, and they came out and just punished the Colts at the line, and that was something we really did not expect here. Stroud was nothing special in this game, but he was steady as always. He doesn't throw a pick. He gets a couple touchdowns. He throws for 234 yards. He didn't go and have a top end Stroud performance that we've seen at times last year, but he's just a guy that isn't going to throw interceptions, and that is so valuable in this league, and that is the reason why most people, including myself, have him in their top 5 right now.
Yeah, Stroud, I mean, the numbers don't show how great. I mean, every time there was a third and long, Colts forced the Texans into a couple third and 11, third and 14, third and 13s. And CJ Stroud would just deliver a throw that was just on the money, perfect. Gets him the first down. We saw in the last possession. He gets one to Nico Collins on the sideline that I was celebrating. I thought it was incomplete. And then all of a sudden, the Texan sideline's going crazy. Nico Collins somehow caught it. Perfect throw. There was a third and 14 where he scrambles to the right, throws back over the middle, finds, I think it was Tank Dell. Texans, they were able to get those big third downs, keep the possession, and then when they would get the first down, Joe Mixon was able to run all over this Colts defense, which is the last thing that I expected going into this game. I thought it was going to be the Texans pass attack just carving up the Colts, but it was Joe Mixon. They were just doing tosses to either side of the field, little zone runs, and they were just carving up the Colts defense. Was an embarrassing performance from the front seven that the Colts have put so much into. I want to see the numbers because I remember it being a lot. Yeah, Nick Cross had 14 total tackles and Julian Blackman had 13. So we're forcing our two safeties out there to be the ones to make the plays. And we need better from the defensive line, and especially Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed, who just did not have their best day. They need to be better next week going against the Packers, who are going to be running the football a lot. So they're going to have to do that. But offensively for the Colts, very encouraging. As expected, Anthony Richardson has the moments where he's showing a lot of promise. He has some moments where he has accuracy issues and misses a throw or two, but two touchdowns and one pick. And with that one interception, it really was kind of a good throw. Kylan Granson fell on the route, got his fingertips on the ball, but was unfortunately intercepted. Richardson had a couple chances for touchdowns to A.D. Mitchell, who looked very good out there, although he only finishes with one catch for 2 yards. Got open, just they were unable to get connection. One of them was an illegal contact where he got slowed down, and the other was miscommunication. So overall, I'm very happy with how the Colts played. I picked the Texas plus 3.5 that didn't hit. I think if the Colts can go into Houston, they play good there. I think they can go and win that game later in the year, but this was an encouraging performance with no running game. That will get better. The offensive line as well wasn't phenomenal, but Anthony Richardson was able to show that he could keep this offense kind of on his back. Almost, we saw he wasn't best in the short yardage, but two 50-plus yard completions, one of them being 70 yards after he had stumbled and throws off his back foot and just puts it on the money to Alec Pierce. That was one of the best throws in Lucas Oil Stadium history. Just phenomenal. I don't even know how he did that. That was incredible. But nice to see Alec Pierce. Last year he was open deep a lot, but Gardner Minshew has maybe a quarter of the arm that Anthony Richardson has, and could be a big season for Alec Pierce if this can continue. I'm really excited to see how this team will play with Josh Downs when he comes back and is able to play healthy. That'll help them with Anthony Richardson throwing the ball short, but overall, a good performance from the Colts offense. The defense has to be better, though. That was an embarrassing performance. And for the Texans, you get the win. That's what you needed. Your offense looked good. Your new additions look good. Diggs had 2 touchdowns, and Mixon had 100-plus yards on the ground. So Texans have a good thing going. As long as they can stay healthy, they're going to be a threat for the Super Bowl.
Moving on here to Jags and Dolphins. Miami really struggled to move the ball early in this game. They didn't score until the last 3 minutes of the first half, or the last minute of the first half, I should say. In this one, they really struggled to score early. They turned it up a bit in the second half, but overall, the offense was very underwhelming from Miami, something we don't expect. They're very good offensively early in the season at home in this era, and it was very concerning for me to see them not come out hot, but overall, they have so much talent. It's hard for me to imagine that's going to be a big problem for them. Big confidence booster, though, for this Jacksonville defense. They really need to be good for this Jags team to be effective this year. And we saw at times last year, this unit, despite not being the most talented unit in the league, at times they were able to show up. You're going to get times where they're going to be bad because they're not the most talented unit. Like I said, in those games, you need Trevor Lawrence in the offense to step up to get you a win. In this game, though, they were very, very good and a great unit overall, holding the Dolphins, who are a great offense, of 20 points. And like I said, they didn't score until the last minute of the first half in this one. That's very, very impressive in my opinion. Unfortunately, Trevor Lawrence and the Jags were not able to get it done offensively. Both pass rushes were able to sack the other quarterback 3 times. That was very impressive from Jacksonville as well. We knew Miami was going to have a good pass rush, and Jacksonville's offense isn't great, or offensive line is not great, I should say, excuse me. But Jacksonville being able to get to 2 or 3 times was definitely impressive. Tyreek and Waddle both showed out despite a bad offensive game for their team. They both finished with great stat lines. A brutal 25 rush attempts for only 81 yards for Miami. That was truly the reason they couldn't do anything offensively. They weren't able to run the ball. They were able to run the ball with ease as well as having an electric passing offense last year, but they weren't able to do that in this game, and it really showed what their offense is without the rush game. Miami does escape, though, via a 80-yard touchdown to Tyreek Hill. They have to be better. That was basically the only reason they won this game. Overall, I come out of this game not being too concerned with Miami because they're such a good offensive unit, and Tyreek still finishes with 338, or Tua still finishes with 338 passing yards. But they need to be able to put points on the board. They need to be able to run the ball better. But I'm taking my biggest takeaway from this game is the Jacksonville defense. It's going to be very interesting to see if they'll be able to hold this up over the year.
I don't believe they will. I think that this is one of the better performances that they've had. They're able to slow down this Dolphins offense, which has been so good, especially in the first half. Trevor Lawrence looked very good in the first half as well. Could not keep it going though in the second half. In the first half, he had that really nice touchdown to Brian Thomas. It looked like everything was going well, especially for the Jags. The fact that the Jags didn't win this game is crazy. They were up 17-3, had the ball in the red zone, and ETN was running into the end zone for another touchdown. As I can't remember who made the play, but they forced a fumble on ETN, and that completely changed the game. In the second half, Trevor Lawrence was not good at all. Only 37 passing yards. He's got to be able to play the entire game. I was getting ready to think, we might have to start worrying about this Jags team really being towards the top of the AFC South, but they couldn't finish the game in the second half. They struggled. ETN wasn't great. Tank Bigsby was actually more efficient than ETN in the run game. And then later in the game, they go for it on fourth down on their own 32-yard line with the lead and just run a play. ETN had no chance at it. He ran probably about 30 yards and lost 2 total. Just a win that we haven't seen from the Dolphins, though, in a couple of years. Usually they get the big lead and kind of just smoke teams. Here they're come from behind. They find a nice way to win games. Tua threw for 338 total yards. Tyreek Hill had a good game, 7 catches and 130 yards after being arrested before the game, which it looks like the body cam footage was just released. So that'll be an interesting watch later. See how that goes. But nice comeback win for the Dolphins. It's nice to see them be able to come from behind and win for once. Although this is a game that I feel like they should have won by a lot more.
Definitely a team that did not, or the team that did win by a lot more. The New Orleans Saints beat the Carolina Panthers 47-10. Hilarious to look at this game if you were just watching the box score and didn't watch any part of this game. Maybe that was partially me, but no, I did watch a little bit of it. I saw some of it on Red Zone as well. There was a point where I'm like, there's no reason this needs to take up a box on my screen. But Derek Carr finishes with 200 yards and Saints finished with 47 points, which is just insane. I fear the Panthers might be horrible. That's just a little inclination that I have.
I have a little more than a fear for that
one. Bryce Young throws 2 horrible picks, sub 50% completion percentage. I think I have a lot to say about the Saints defense. I think the Saints defense actually might be a really, really good unit. They were able to get to Bryce Young 4 sacks. I know their offensive line isn't crazy, but the Panthers do not have a horrible offensive line. And we know the Saints are going to be great in the secondary. So maybe this is the game we should be most mad about our pick on. But
I picked the Saints.
Oh, you did? Oh, I thought you went Panthers. Oh, I went Panthers. Yeah,
I picked the Panthers to finish above the Saints. I completely regret that. I got the Saints for this one.
I got cute. I'll just say it. I got cute. I wanted to get one on, but the Panthers didn't even get close to covering that in this game, of course. And the Saints defense, like I said, I think the Panthers are a bad team offensively, and I think they're just a bad team in general, but I still think this was very, very impressive from the Saints. Their offense wasn't even that crazy in this game. Their defense just kept putting them in great spots. They were great in the red zone, though. They convert on all 4 red zone possessions in this game. Carr looked steady all day. The wide receivers were getting wide open for him. Shaheed was amazing. He was able to be one of the top speed guys as well on the day yesterday. The Saints scored points on their first 8 drives of this game and put up 47 points on those first 8 drives. They were just absolutely dominant out of the gate. They didn't need to do anything after that. The Saints defense just kept setting them up all day. The Saints offense wasn't great, but they were able to take advantage of what the defense gave them. Despite not making drives, they were able to convert on what they needed to. The Saints, very, very impressive after this game. I know it's the Panthers, but their defense was so good, and we know they have enough talent outside of their offensive line on offense to be okay in some games. I think the Saints could be around where they were last year and maybe sneak in a late playoff spot. I don't know. It's a little early for me to say that, but regardless, I was impressed, and it's hard to be impressed when you're playing against the Panthers, but I was impressed.
Yeah, I had predicted in the preview that I thought Bryce Young would be better this season, but I thought he would struggle in this game. I did not expect him to struggle this badly. He finishes 13 for 30, 161 yards with 2 picks. Just didn't look good at all. He has the weapons now, in my opinion. I don't think he can make that excuse. They use a first-round pick. You have Thielen and Deontay Johnson, who are 2 solid guys. They don't really have the big run game that you would like, but he just didn't look like he had it. He would step up in the pocket. He had when he had time to throw the ball, he still couldn't deliver the throws. Didn't really have like the arm strength or like the physical capabilities. Um, you look at Anthony Richardson, I don't want to make that comparison, but Anthony Richardson maybe doesn't have the brain that Bryce Young has or the talent. I mean, no, he has just more talent. He's more physically gifted. I don't know if Bryce Young's just physically gifted enough to be that guy.
Say he's short. You want to say it?
It's not even the short. He's also just small. I don't think he has the arm strength as well to
Yeah.
really
He doesn't
kind
look
of do it.
comfortable ever.
Doesn't look comfortable, no. So I don't know. I want to say he could be a Drew Brees who was shorter as well, but or Russell Wilson, but he doesn't. I don't know. He just doesn't have the arm talent I feel like that those guys had. Um, and then
He
one
has a
part of
better
their
chance of being Russell Wilson than he does Drew Brees.
yeah. One thing about the Panthers that I thought would be solid this season was the defense, and I think I actually, if I have faith in Bryce Young, I don't. Well, I might still have faith in Bryce Young to figure it out. I don't think I have faith in this Panthers defense at all. I think this unit is one of the worst in the NFL. Um, they don't really have any guys to get pass rush in. They just lost Derek Brown to for the rest of the season. It looks like he tore his, I think, meniscus. So that's an abysmal. That's a huge loss for that defense. Uh, I I just don't have any faith in that unit. For the Saints, this was a huge win for them. Derek Carr looks good, 82.6% completion. Alvin Kamara looks good as well. 15 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown. You were able to run the ball very good on a team that I thought would be able to kind of stop the run. Doesn't seem like it's like that. And then defensively, they had 4 sacks, forced 3 turnovers, had Bryce Young looking like a middle schooler. I think this could almost be a three-way battle for the NFC South. I know I thought this division would be one of the worst, but I think the Saints might be decent. I think the Bucks are good, and I thought the Falcons were good, but we're gonna have to see. I think this could be a interesting battle for the NFC South. And I completely take back the Panthers finishing third. They will finish last.
There you go. Get ahead of that early. Well, a little bit late, but get ahead
I
of it
thought
early.
that was my first thought after. I mean, Bryce Young's first pass of the game was an interception.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. I was like, oh
The
man,
season ended on the first play of the game.
the Saints got like a 60-yard touchdown, and Bryce Young has a pick on the first play.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. Tough look. But moving
David
on,
Tepper, you are
in trouble.
Yeah.
I guess moving on here to the Vikings beating the Giants 28-6. I guess this was the part in the preview where I just decided to get cute, taking the Giants and the
I took the Giants
Panthers.
too here.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Too.
For some reason, I thought it was flipped. I thought we both took the Panthers and you took the Vikings.
Regret
But
this.
yeah, I had Vikings -1.5 written down, and I deleted it and took the Giants for no reason. But the Giants get absolutely destroyed in this game. Darnold is very impressive in his first game, goes 19 for 24, 208, a touchdown, did throw one pick, but 19 for 24 is really good for him. Aaron Jones' debut in Minnesota is a success. He looked fresh, and he hasn't looked fresh since, well, there were times last year where he did, but he was hurt so often. If he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be huge for this team. Darnold was spreading it out too. 7 Minnesota receivers had at least 2 catches this game, so he was really spreading the love even without TJ Hawkinson in this game. Or I don't think, yeah, Addison wasn't in there either. Right? Or no, he did play. He did play. But
He got hurt though.
yeah, Daniel Jones looked very rough all day. He throws 2 picks on 2 boneheaded plays. One of them was just a really good play from the Vikings defense, but still, you got to see that come in there on the screen right by your goal line too. Giants just couldn't move the ball. Daniel Jones, this is something we've been saying for 4 years now. He got sacked 5 times in this game. Never really had a chance. Hard to judge. Coming out of this game for me, it's hard to judge if the Vikings may be kind of good and if Darnold might be serviceable enough to win some games with a decently talented roster, or if the Giants are that bad of a team. It's really tough to go right now. I'm just not insanely confident in the back end of the Vikings defense. And the fact that Daniel Jones, despite getting hit all day, was able to get nothing on this Vikings defense leans me more into the direction of the Giants just being bad. But regardless, I'm back and forth on this one, whether the Vikings are good or the Giants are bad, but both things can also be true.
Yeah, very bad game if you are a New York Giant fan. Not only did you watch Friday night Saquon Barkley get 3 touchdowns for one of your rival teams, you lose to Sam Darnold, who on top of that got drafted to the Jets. I don't think that really matters, but Sam Darnold just carved him up. Completed his first 12 passes, 19 completions total. He was great. Had a couple throws deep. I can't remember who he threw that one to from his own end zone to about the 45. Wow, it just was an absolute dot. Justin Jefferson, solid game. He gets into the end zone for the first time this season. Good for him. But overall, my main takeaway is this: that the Giants are bad. We saw this last season in their first game. I think they played the Eagles and got absolutely smoked. Or it was either the Eagles or the Cowboys, and they lost just abysmally. And here they get destroyed by the Vikings of all teams, a team that I did not think was going to be very good. Daniel Jones doesn't look good at all. It's this stat just being a thing is absolutely crazy to me. I know he's been injured a lot, hasn't played much, but in the last 2 years since he signed his big extension, he has thrown 3 touchdowns to the opposing team and only 2 touchdowns to his own players. It's been a year and a half since he signed that deal. That's
Absurd.
absurd. Um, just nice win for the Vikings to be able to dominate this team. Your defense looks good. Maybe that's just another one where Brian Flores is that good of a defensive schemer that he had Daniel Jones seeing ghosts, but I don't know. Aaron Jones, like you said, he looked great as well. 94 yards on a touchdown, 6.7 yards per carry. He said leading up to this game that if you're doing a fantasy football draft to take him, he's gonna do good things for you. And maybe he was right. He's getting old. I think he's like 29, but maybe he was right. Embarrassing for the Giants to lose like this. Your pass rush that you had traded for Brian Burns, you have Kayvon Thibodeau as well, wasn't very effective at all. Your defense didn't show much. Your offense showed nothing, and you had no run game, and you decided not to pay your running back. So embarrassing all around from the top to the bottom for the Giants.
Okay, moving on here into the afternoon slate of games with the Chargers beating the Raiders 22-10. This was a very tough watch. This game was 12 punts total in this game. A lot of that the entire time. Very different from the last time we saw these two teams play when the Raiders put up 63 on their own. The Chargers pass rush was very good. They have so much talent. We've been waiting to see this Chargers defense really come out and hold on. Oh, never mind. I thought it was something else. Anyways, the Chargers pass rush was able to get to Minshew early and often. They forced a lot of mistakes from him. That was huge for the Chargers. That was one of the biggest reasons they won this game, along with J.K. Dobbins, who goes for a 135 and a
I don't know how he
touchdown.
did it, man. Don't know how he does it.
He's healthy. He came out of this game healthy, I believe, to my knowledge, he did. And he
Well,
goes for the
he's usually good
135 and a
week one, I
touchdown.
think. I think it's week two is the scary one.
But it was good to see from him. The
Oh
Chargers,
my.
we said they need to lean on the run this year. We said that in the preview, and they were able to do that in this game, and it got them the win. Herbert and the Chargers offense kind of looked clunky all game. But because they were able to lean on that run game, they were able to win this game against the Raiders team, who I had higher expectations from than what we saw this game, to be completely honest. There were, when Minshew wasn't under pressure, he was okay. Bowers leads the team in receptions. I believe he gets 6 catches this game in his first game. That's good for him. There were two big drives this game from both teams, and they both came from the Chargers. That's really what led to the win. The Chargers were able to have 2 drives late for touchdowns to win this game against a Raiders team that wasn't playing well. Overall, I'm not impressed by really either team in this game, but I am impressed from a standpoint of the Chargers. My checklist for the Chargers was get what you need, what you can out of this defense that has a ton of talent, and be able to run the football. That's what I expect from a Jim Harbaugh team. That's what this Chargers team needs specifically. They were able to do that week one. They start 1-0.
This is exactly what I expect from a Jim Harbaugh team, minus the sign ceiling. I don't know if they've done that yet or not, but
Maybe
J.K.
the Raiders look like
Dobbins,
shit.
yeah, somehow they hacked their earpieces. They knew what they were
Right,
calling.
their pitch com.
J.K. Dobbins somehow was able to still deliver an elite performance after all he's been through so many injuries. Good for him. 10 carries, 135 yards and a touchdown. That's 13 and a half yards a carry. Had 131 yards in the final 2 quarters, so pretty much all of his damage. He was phenomenal. Very nice to see from him. Herbert, he didn't do too much, didn't have to. Did what he had to do. Found Lad McConkey for his first touchdown of the season, so good for him. 5 catches and 39 yards in his debut as well. Their offensive line looked very solid. Their tackles and especially their rookie Joe Alt looked good. 19 pass blocking snaps, 0 pressures allowed. And the Raiders we've talked about how good their pass rush can be, so that's very impressive to see from him. That could be a 2 home run picks for them with McConkey and Joe Alt. This is how Harbaugh teams win. They run the ball. And for the Raiders, this is how Antonio Pierce, he's kind of avoided this and kind of why he got the job. They were limiting turnovers and not much penalties. They just looked like a clean football team. Didn't really see that too much in this game. a couple turnovers. Gardner Minshew did throw an interception, and then some just bad decisions as a coach overall. They went for it on 4th and 1 on their own 41 in the first quarter. Didn't really understand that decision at all. And then in the fourth quarter, when they're on the Chargers 43 in the same position on a 4th and 1, you're down by, I think, 6 points. They decided to just not go for it in that position. I think that was just an absolute terrible decision. You have to go for it in that point, and they did not. They were in the game though. They should have won. I don't think they should have won, but they should have been in a position to win, and they weren't. I don't like their run game. Didn't really look good. Zamir White, 13 carries, 44 yards. Missed field goal as well. Gardner Minshew was okay, just not. Didn't do too much. I think he would need a run game to rely on for this team to really be successful. And I don't think they have that. They decided not to go for a running back in the offseason, which is something I don't understand. But good win for the Chargers. That's a win you're going to get under Harbaugh. Nice to see for them, to, especially J.K. Dobbins.
You know, the Raiders had success against the Chargers last year, and you mentioned that Antonio Pierce, not inexplicably, but goes for it on 4th down in the first quarter, and then late in the game when he needs to go for it, doesn't go for it. What coach or former coach does that remind you of that has to do with
Brandon
this game?
Staley.
That
Yep.
was his MO. He would go for it when he wasn't
Staley,
supposed
yeah.
to and wouldn't when he needed to.
Yeah.
And you get Harbaugh in there, who is the opposite of Staley, and you get the win over
Mm-hmm.
a team that makes a mistake. So I think that's a great sign for the Chargers.
Yeah.
But moving on here, staying in this division with the Broncos, the Seahawks defeat the Broncos 26-20. Despite looking solid to start this game, Knicks and the Broncos just kind of flamed out in the second half of this one. Knicks ends up throwing 2 picks in rookie fashion. One of them was a great play from the Seahawks. I forget who had that pick at the right outside the end zone. Was it Witherspoon? Maybe I don't
I
know
think that
exactly.
was Witherspoon. Oh no,
Or
it's
no, Jordan Love.
McLaurin.
I'm thinking of Jordan Love.
Julian Love.
Or Julian
Julian
Love,
Love.
not Jordan Love, not Jordan
Yeah.
Love. But
Jordan
yes,
Love somehow.
we got to it. It was Julian Love's pick. It was right outside the end zone. I believe it was in the end of the first half. That was huge for them. That was a great pick from him, but still Knicks throws a couple. K9 able to dominate in this game, goes for 100 for the Seahawks. That was huge for them. Quiet games for the Seahawks passing offense in general, but definitely from DK and JSN. That's concerning to me, not being able to do that against this Broncos defense, who is questionable to say the least. The Seahawks came out rough passing the ball in this game, but they were able to lean on the run. The Seahawks are a team, though, who need to be able to pass the ball. They're not always going to be able to run the ball like they did in this game, especially against the Broncos team. You need to be able to pass the ball. That was concerning. 8 penalties for the Broncos really killed them in this one. They made a lot of mistakes that they shouldn't have made, but when you have a team as bad as the Broncos, they're going to make some mistakes like that. After a bad first half, though, Seattle comes out, touchdown, field goal, touchdown, their first 3 drives of the second half, and they took control of the game right there. Broncos scored late to make it close, but Seahawks went up 26-13 and really controlled this one. The Broncos, tough for Seahawks, -6.5 betters, really came in there and ruined everybody's party late in that game. But definitely concerning stuff at some points here for Seattle, but some of their issues might have just been rust in this game. We're definitely going to see it in the coming weeks. I don't know who they play next week, but I know they have to go into Detroit week 4 on Monday night. That's going to be a huge game for them. They do always play well against the Lions, so we'll see how they play in that one. But they got a free game early on here against the Broncos. We'll see how the Seahawks bounce off of it, but you need to see a better passing performance from Gino. He did have a huge run though. Huge, maybe the biggest of his career for a touchdown, like 30 something yards.
34.
Yeah,
Nice win for Mike McDonald to get his first win as a NFL head coach. His defense did a good job just making Bo Nix struggle. The Seahawks offensively did have 2 safeties in the first half, very ugly in the first half. In the second half, they decided to rely more on Kenneth Walker, and he got hot, took over 81 yards in the third quarter, 103 yards total. He did pick up an abdomen injury, but it seems like he should be okay. In the past game, they didn't have too much going with Geno Smith. Lockett had 6 catches. DK Metcalf, only 3. He was seemingly shut down by Patrick Surtain, who's one of the better corners in the game. For the Broncos, you wanted to see Bo Nix kind of just be calm in the pocket and look like a veteran almost as a rookie. Didn't really see that through 2 picks. 26 for 42 and 138 yards. Having your rookie throw the ball 42 times isn't ideal. I don't think that's a very smart decision from Sean Payton. I think he's going to have to be better in the future, but still a lot of season left. Jaleel McLaughlin seems to almost be the lead running back here in Denver. He outcarried Javonte Williams. I think he outsnapped him as well. So unfortunately from Javonte Williams, who had a lot of hype going into his rookie season, especially looked very good and suffered an injury and hasn't really been able to recover. But still a lot of season left. I think these two teams will learn more about him as the season goes on.
Moving on here to but the first game of Tom Brady's broadcasting career, the Cowboys and the Browns. I think Tom sounded okay on the mic. How
Yeah,
do you think?
I thought he did solid. I mean, there wasn't anything that I had an issue with.
For little first game jitters, maybe a little bit of
Yeah,
tough to gather his words at some points, but
yeah.
he did his job.
He's got a Kevin Burkhardt. I mean, I don't think him and Kevin Burkhardt probably talk at all outside of the broadcast, so it's got to develop a connection with
And
him
they'll
as
build
well.
that. They'll build that.
Yeah,
I mean, Greg
I have
Olson.
confidence in him.
I never liked Greg Olson, but people who ended up liking him at the end didn't like him in the beginning. So
Yeah,
I expect positive things from him. He unfortunately didn't get a great game here in
no,
Broncos Cowboys as it was expected. Rough game for Deshaun Watson and the Browns. Cowboys defense was an absolute force in this game. They sacked Deshaun Watson 6 times. They were solid offensively in the first half, but they faded in the second half. 2 field goals in the second half for Dallas. Despite having great field position, they had 2 field goals on drives where they definitely should have been better. That was unfortunate for them. It feels a lot like early last year when I was coming on here. Cowboys were getting wins. Their defense was looking great, putting their offense in great positions. Their offense wasn't always performing how they should have in the first few weeks. And then we saw what happened. Their defense got a little bit worse, but their offense got a ton better, and they were the best offense in the league, arguably, last year. We'll see how that plays out. If they can do that, once again, they're going to be in a good spot. But I'm looking at this game, and I'm not coming out of it impressed with the Cowboys offense as they came out of last year looking great up until that last game. We're now seeing back-to-back games where their offense doesn't look fantastic. The Browns defense still played solid despite giving up 26 points offensively. They were in the game the whole time. And another point with the whole Cowboys starting out slow in this game and just being slow in general in this game on offense. They're playing against the Browns defense, so I don't hold too much against them. And their defense was able to put them in enough positions where they were going to score enough points regardless. And they have Brandon Aubrey, who's one of the best kickers in the league, maybe the best right now. He almost attempted a 71 yarder.
oh my gosh,
Oh, I wanted him to
I wanted
attempt
it
the
so bad.
66. He nailed the 66, although
No,
there
the
was a
66 was
flag.
good.
Yeah, that 66 might have been good from 71, honestly. But yeah, that would have been crazy to see. Unfortunately, Mike McCarthy second guesses it a little bit there and doesn't go for it. The biggest thing here to decipher for me is this what Deshaun Watson is, which we've seen, or are we going to give him the benefit of the doubt because the Cowboys defense is that good and they're a really hard team to play against? If I'm going to give Dak and the Cowboys offense the benefit of the doubt, I feel like I kind of have to do the same for the Browns. But we're going to really see what the case is in the coming games here. They have some good opportunities for the Browns to show that they are good offensively. Tough to start with the Cowboys, I will say that. But they go against Jacksonville, who did play good this week against Miami, but we're not convinced that they're a great unit yet. Then they play the Giants, they should torch them. Then they play Vegas, they should torch them. Then they play Washington, they should torch them. If they come out of this stretch and we're not convinced about Deshaun Watson and this Browns offense after Washington, I think they're very much in trouble then. But for now, I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit, and we'll see how he does against some lesser opponents in the coming weeks.
Yeah, for the Cowboys, defense just absolutely dominated Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson did not look good at all. Eric Kendricks had an interception. He looked pretty solid out there in his first game with the Cowboys. Micah Parsons looked very good. He was wrecking havoc, had a couple of sack, had a pass deflection that led to an interception. And the Cowboys defense did what you would expect the recent Cowboys defenses to do, dominate the game offensively. Dak did what he had to do, didn't wasn't special. He got paid before the game. He's now the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. I think he's the highest paid player in NFL history now. I personally think that's the right decision. I don't think you're going to find a quarterback better than Dak Prescott, especially with how good their team is. You're not going to be able to find a quarterback to replace him anyways. I think it's the right decision. Um, their running game was solid. Ezekiel Elliott looked like he had a little bit of a pep in his step, had a nice hurdle to start the game. I think he looked better than he did last year. Maybe he's just better in Dallas than normally, but I thought he looked good. But the main thing I saw was just the Browns defense just being terrible, and maybe their Browns offense being terrible. At one point, this game was 11-1 on first downs. They couldn't get anything going. They don't have a run game really at all without Nick Chubb, obviously. Jerome Ford, he had 12 carries for 44 yards, not ideal. David Njoku kind of seemed like maybe the only guy Deshaun Watson was confident in, and he ends up getting hurt. He has a high ankle sprain. He'll be out for a while. Just Deshaun Watson not looking good at all. I didn't think he'd look good at all, but I didn't expect it to be this bad. He continues to look worse and worse. And for a guy you're paying 60 million with that has had issues off the field, has issues on the field, it's just not worth it for Cleveland. And if you're a Browns fan, you're looking at Baker Mayfield right now, and you're just not feeling good.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Speaking of, perfectly leads us here into Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers against the Commanders. Jaden Daniels looked solid in his debut for the Commanders, but the Commanders just are not talented enough around him to be able to produce wins and produce good offensive stuff. None of the Commanders' top three receivers were wide receivers. It was Eckler, Brian Robinson, and Zach Ertz were the top three receivers on the day, two running backs and a tight end. Baker and the Bucks just absolutely dominated. Baker goes 24 for 30, 389 or 289, four touchdowns, no picks. He was phenomenal for them. Bucks still could not run it too well, which is semi-concerning. It's something they really struggled with last year, something we were looking at going into the season as this is something they need to improve on to become a better team. If they don't, they're going to be in the same spot. Pass game, though, was going so well that they didn't even have to run the ball. The problem is that's not going to happen against good teams. They play the Lions next week. They are a team that in recent history you can pass all over, but if the Lions can be good in the secondary, and the Bucks have a game where they need to run the ball, this is going to be a significant problem for them. We'll see how that happens against teams where they have to run it against. They definitely didn't have to run it against the Commanders, and we expected that going into this game. They come out hot too. They Bucks score in their first five drives of the game. I'm excited to see how Jaden Daniels progresses. Really, he showed a lot of impressive stuff this game. But given his situation, regardless, I'm super impressed from what I've seen of him, and I think he's going to have a good season if he could stay healthy, regardless of the stuff around him.
Yeah, I was most shocked with how. I mean, I don't think this Commanders defense, after watching just one game, and I think this Commanders defense is again maybe the worst unit in the NFL defensively. But Baker Mayfield looked absolutely phenomenal. 289 yards, four touchdowns, no picks. Maybe the best quarterback of the week. He seems to have a very good connection now with his top two guys, and Chris Godwin and Mike Evans had 13 catches for 144 yards combined. Rashad White continues to be very good in the pass game with six catches for 75 yards. In the run game, it was a lot of Bucky Irving. Rashad White had 15 carries to Irving's nine, but Bucky Irving did have 62 yards in his nine carries, averaging 6.9, where Rashad White only had 31, averaging 2.1. So it'll be interesting to see if Bucky Irving will kind of start taking over the rushing, and maybe Rashad White is in for more of the pass downs. But almost 400 total yards of offense, 9 for 13 on third downs. The Buccaneers just dominated this game overall. Jane Daniels, nice debut. Showed a lot late when the game was kind of over, but overall, maybe the best rookie debut from a quarterback. Had 88 yards on the ground, continues to take a couple hits that he shouldn't, needs to learn how to slide still. Three total touchdowns, though. I think very good for him. Did enough to make Commanders fans not too upset with how the game went, but defense for the Commanders is going to be bad all season. So I agree. This Commanders team is as good as Jane Daniels can be. I think that they're still going to lose a lot of games just behind how poor this defense is.
Okay, finishing off this recap with Sunday Night Football, the Rams lose to the Lions 26 to 20 in overtime. Best game of the week, hands down here. Lions defense just came out really hot. They played bend don't break football for a long time. The Rams had 3 points up until the final 3 minutes of the third quarter. The Lions defense was just really locking them down for the most part, especially in the red zone. The Rams have been one of the best, if not the best, offensive red zone team in the league the past couple of years. And the Lions have played them twice now in the past four games, and they have locked them down in the red zone, including a pick from Kirby Joseph towards the end of the half there from Matthew Stafford. The Lions offense came out slow, but had back-to-back great drives after a three and out. They did that in the second half too. They had a three and out, and then they had a great drive, and then they looked a little slow again. They need to be able to figure that out. They had times last year where they really struggled in the third quarter. They did get outscored 10-3 in the fourth, but they tie 7-7 in the third quarter here. So we had some improvement there. But the Lions really just stayed in their 5, 6, 7, 8 yard first down carry ways. When you got guys like Gibbs and Monty, and even to an extent being able to run jet sweeps with Amon-Ra or with JMO, and you can get 6, 7, 8 yards every single first down, you're going to be in a great spot. And when you're an explosive offense, being able to operate out of 2nd and 2s and 2nd and 3s and 2nd and 4s is just great for a team. Jamison Williams is here. He leads the team in catches, yards, and touchdowns on the day. He was so, so good, explosive. He came out a little bit hurt after getting back to back touches for like 40 something yards. He comes out hurt. He comes back in the game and then beats Trey White, former All Pro, down the field on a quick double move. Trey White even tries to tackle him because he gets beat so bad. JMO beats him down the field and scores a touchdown. I believe that was like a 51-yard touchdown. Teams are going to have to just play a lot different on the Lions now defensively. They can't hone in on the run a ton. They can't hone in on Amon-Ra a ton because you have options like Laporta and Jamison Williams who are going to be able to get touches and are so explosive. You have to account for those guys. Hutch, he was great. He gets a career high 11 pressures in this game, 6 hurries, 4 hits, and a sack. He led the Lions in the PFF grade too by a lot for this game. He was held a ton, but he did draw a few holding penalties. One that would end up being huge for them on a touchdown. He draws a hold. He was being held all day, but he did so, so good, and he was able to affect Matt Stafford. The Rams had to adjust their entire game plan this game because of how well the Lions pass rush was. Marcus Davenport, another name who the Lions signed in free agency. You're always worried about him being able to stay healthy, but he was dominant when he was in there this year. Levi Ozarinki was good. We also had Ali McNeil, who was solid for them. Lions didn't even have DJ Reader this week. Hopefully he's back next week. But the Rams had to change their entire game plan. They had to start just getting the ball out on their first reads because of the Lions pass rush, but they did it very, very well because Matt Stafford is just that good of a QB. He can adjust. He made a couple plays where he was just getting middle of getting tackled and just threw an absolute dot to his first read. He was just really, really good all day, despite how good the Lions showed that they could be in this game. Cup also tore up the Lions. That was a tough first task, though. I know Terrion Arnold wasn't on him the whole game. He was on him for a lot of the game, though. Tough for Terrion. He looked great at times, too, though. So did Carlton Davis. Ennis Rakestraw had to come in a little bit late because there were some injuries. Brian Branch looked great on the back end. Kirby comes up with the pick. The Lions had a ton to be proud of on defense. And then you get to overtime after the Lions. I was this whole game, there wasn't a single point where I was worried except for one moment where the Lions they had the ball with 4 minutes left right after the Rams took the lead and they had a 3-and-out and punted it. That was the first moment I was worried in the game. The Lions end up getting a stop and getting the ball back, and immediately my worries went away because you could feel that they were going to go get a field goal. Jake Bates was able to go knock it down for them from short. They weren't able to get in the end zone. Then they call tails. Tails never fails on the coin toss from Jared Goff. Stafford calls heads. It lands on tails. Lions get the ball, and that was all she wrote. They just ran it down the throat of the Rams defense that was tired and just not ready. David Montgomery, I know he was getting some big holes because this Lions offensive line was just so, so good. Zeitler and Penei Sewell together is a deadly combo on the right side. You could run it at them every time. They were still able to go to the left side too. They were running the same plays, just flipping it back and forth. They'd run it at Penei and Kevin Zeitler, then they'd run it at Taylor Decker, and they'd run it at Graham Glasgow, and they were just getting so much push. And even when they didn't get push, David Montgomery was consistently getting 4, 5, 6 yards extra. He had one he broke for like 20. He was just hard to tackle. The Rams just did not have a chance in this one in overtime. Next week, Lions got the Bucks at home. It's funny how they're just replaying the Lions playoff run to start this season, but that's what they're doing. DJ Reader is going to be back next week. I feel great about this win for the Lions. They showed so much defensively that we needed to see from them versus a good team. They get a win, 1-0. First overtime win in Ford Field, I think, since first overtime win for the Lions since 2016, I think. Something like that. I think it was the Golden Tate Minnesota game, but yeah, they look
Oh,
great.
wow. Yeah, Rams had to deal with a lot of injuries early in this game. Nakua left with a knee injury. Joe Newcomb, left tackle. He was playing solid. He had to leave the game, and that really hurt him. Let Aiden Hutchinson get some easy reps against the backups. Stafford looked very good outside of his one red zone interception where Kirby Joseph seemingly blended into the end zone, just didn't see him. But he was great, phenomenal. Looked like the Matthew Stafford we expect to see, and Cooper Kupp as well. Looked like the Cooper Kupp from just 2 years ago. So I just want to say that's Cooper Kupp is still that good. 14 catches for 110 yards. I think that ties his career high in receptions. He was phenomenal. Great game overall. The Lions offense, they looked great at some points, didn't look great at some points, but they're able to run the ball down any team, especially late in the game. Montgomery looked phenomenal. I liked the split they did with Montgomery and Gibbs. It was almost like each possession they were going back and forth, keeping each other fresh, and both of them were able to have good games and put up great numbers. Montgomery 91 yards on the ground, Gibbs 40 yards. They each had a touchdown. Gibbs had a little more in the receiving game. Big game from Jamison Williams, which, like you said, that's great to see, something he needed. Sam Laporta was a little quiet, 4 catches for 45 yards. Amon-Ra was very quiet, only 3 catches for 13 yards, one of maybe his quietest games in the last year and a half for him. But the Lions defense, they're able to get the job done. I think this secondary is just going to continue to get better, and the front seven is going to be very good as the season goes on. But big win for the Lions, and they can have a chance to rip off a couple of wins here now for a while. Like you said, they got who do they have next week?
They have the Bucks next week.
It goes in reverse order. That's weird. Yeah, Bucks, Cardinals, Seahawks, Cowboys. I think they could go into that Cowboys game maybe 4-0, and that could be a huge game.
I actually came on here with a promise. I don't like to say things like this because it's just going to come back to bite me. The Lions are going to start 4-0. I guarantee it. I guarantee they're winning the next 3 games.
I mean, I remember the Seahawks game so that you were confident they were going to win, and somehow the Seahawks beat them, and maybe the Bucks get a revenge game.
I agree. Last year was unforgivable. This year, they're going to beat the shit out of the Seahawks. I'm more confident in that one than I am in the Cardinals game.
Really?
Yeah, the Cardinals are scrappy.
I think the Bucks got to be the toughest one there, obviously.
Yeah, I agree, but I think if the Lions can limit their pass game at all, they just have no run game, and the Lions are not going to let you run on them.
And then after that Cowboys game, you got a handful of easy games. I bet Jordan Love will be back for that November 3rd game, so that'll be a tough one. But Vikings Titans, those should be easy wins, and yeah,
they got a winnable schedule, man. They definitely got a winnable schedule.
They do.
And also a name we didn't mention, Alex Anzalone was crazy. He was smacking dudes out there, man. He's one of the more underrated linebackers in the league, honestly. He doesn't get enough credit. Mm-hmm. And he goes out there, he plays hard. I know it was either DJ Moore or Fields called him a dirty player last year. I think it might have been Fields. One of them did, but you can call him a dirty player, but he just hits hard as hell. The first play of the game, I forget who it was. It might have been Kyron. I think it was Kyron. Smacked him. But that whole game was hard hitting. Both teams were just hitting hard. It was good to see.
It's a good game. Good start for Sunday Night Football.
It was, and we don't always get that. We usually get like Dallas Giants.
Yeah, blowout.
We got blessed. But moving on here to some studs and duds. I have a couple for each category here, so I'll just name one of each, and then we can do some honorable mentions if you don't take the ones that I already have here. For stud, I don't think you're going to take him, so I'm going to go with Joe Mixon. He just 30 for 160. It's hard. It's undeniable. A Texans team that we didn't think was going to be able to run block super well because they haven't in the past. They come out there and they run block for Mixon, and that was legitimately why they won the game. They were able to double time possession. And for dud, I got to go with old Bryce Young. I mean, he was just so bad. I mean, it's between him and one other dude who was also so bad that I just couldn't really decide. But yeah, Bryce Young was horrible. I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt against a great Saints defense because we've seen this from him. It's hard to keep making excuses for him. I'm rooting for him because I want to see him be good. I hate to see a guy be the number 1 pick and just be absolutely horrible, especially for a team like the Panthers, which I know Tepper deserves it, but their fans don't deserve how bad that trade was and how bad this has turned out for them. So I'm rooting for him, but I got to go with Bryce Young as my dud.
Yeah, for my stud, Baker Mayfield, he was phenomenal this week, 289 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He looked very good. Looked like he's not missing Dave Canales at all, the OC that left. And for my dud of the week, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals. Just offense, embarrassing performance against the Patriots. Joe Burrow needed to be better. You only get 10 points on one of the worst teams in the NFL. Their defense might be all right, but you have to be better than that. Embarrassing performance. That's a game you have to win, and just embarrassing.
Who's your stud again?
My stud was Baker Mayfield.
Okay. So for my honorable mention, I only had one stud. I had to put Waymo on there. We just talked about him. 5 for 121 and a touchdown. It's Waymo season. Just letting you know that now. Duds though, Daniel Jones also, and I could not end this episode without saying that Caleb Williams is also one.
I was expecting you to pick Caleb Williams as your dud.
So not 93 yards passing under 50%. A lot of overthrows. You hate to
Yeah.
see it. I don't, but some people might hate to see it.
I had
Regard
J- I
Go
had
ahead.
Josh Allen as my honorable mention for stud, but I think he's going to get a couple of those this year, so that's why I went with Baker. And then for my dud, I had the refs calling legal formation for one drive and then kind of just abandoning it.
Yeah, I think that plays fits well for a graphic too. But moving on, or not even moving on, that's about it for this episode of the Engage A podcast. We will be back later on in this week. I believe this episode will go up Wednesday. We'll be back on Thursday to do a preview of the week 2 of the NFL season, as well as doing a recap of Monday Night Football and week 2 of the college football season. So thank you everybody for watching. All of our information is in the description, our social medias, TikTok, Spotify, all that good stuff. And we will see everybody in the next one.